into our next topic because I really want to ask you this. What is considered anti-Semitic at this point? Is it when you're questioning things? Is it saying outrageous things? Let me play the clip and we'll respond. Because I do think what I'm about to play does not express the views of the new party. I think this guy was an anti-Semite. It's Bobby Fischer. I don't know if you guys know who Bobby Fischer is. He's one of the most famous chess players in the world and probably the most famous anti-Semite. And there's a surprising twist at the end. Watch the clip.
Bobby bounced around Europe and Asia. Stuck overseas, he missed the 1997 funeral of his mother, Regina.
In the early 1990s, according to one chess grandmaster who knows them both, they were talking almost every day.
Ultimately, he was very close to his mother, and it must have been a great tragedy for him that he couldn't spend those last years with her, that he...
These wild anti-American, anti-Semitic rants that he gives on Philippine radio.
Well, this is all wonderful news. It's time for the U.S. to get their heads kicked in. It's time to finish off the U.S. once and for all. They say, death to President Bush, I say, death to the United States. United States, the Jews. The Jews are criminal people. They mutilate their children. They're murderous, criminal, thieving, lying bastards. They made up the Holocaust as our word of truth to them.
He was increasingly obsessed with these anti-Semitic issues. He wasn't playing chess anymore. So this was taking up more and more space.
He said things like all the Jews in America should be rounded up. I mean, it's horrendous.
Close down all the synagogues, arrest all the Jews, execute hundreds of thousands of Jewish ringleaders.
Despite having a Jewish mother, Bobby has never considered himself Jewish.
His anti-Semitism was a mindset. It was a sort of psychopathic illness which he couldn't shake off.
A secret about Bobby's paternity was discovered.
There wasn't a whole lot known about Gerhard Fischer, and when we started digging into it, we discovered that, in fact, Gerhard Fischer had never actually really been part of Bobby's life, that he never actually ever entered the United States.
All evidence points to the father being Paul Nemenyi, who was a Hungarian physicist who died in the early 1950s.
It wasn't clear whether they ever actually told Bobby that Paul was his real father.
Beyond the physical resemblance, Bobby and Paul Nemenyi seem to share certain personality traits.
Nemenyi was a very interesting character. According to one former coworker who we interviewed, he had a habit of carrying soap around in his pockets at all times so that he could wash his hands after he touched door handles.
He was an animal.
Parallels in the way that they thought.
There remains one final twist to the revelation of Bobby's biological father. Paul Nemenyi was Jewish, and so Bobby Fischer, arguably the world's most vocal anti-Semite, is the product of not one, but two Jewish parents.
Paul Nemenyi's life and career were ruined by the Nazis. He was fired from his university teaching job in Germany because he was Jewish. And to have a son then who has somehow grasped onto anti-Semitism as a cause is incredibly ironic.
They're absolute criminals, the Jews. The Jews are behind this. It's a filthy Jew country.
The explanation, then, of Bobby's resentment remains open for debate.
I think my father, at the end of the day, he viewed Bobby as a guy who had unfortunately lost his mind.
What a twist, right? Gray, you were the one that brought me this clip and wanted to talk about it tonight. What is your thoughts on this obvious anti-Semite?
Yeah, I'm an avid chess player. I'm self-taught, so I know who Bobby Fischer is. He's considered the best chess player of all time. And I think this goes to show, how racism or prejudice really is a construct of something that we make up. This reminds me of the Dave Chappelle episode. I don't know if any of you guys seen this, when he's blind, but he's in the Ku Klux Klan and he hates black people. And that's what I would compare this story to.
Bulger, what's your thoughts?
I'm gonna pass on this one. I know him as a chess player, but I didn't know a lot of him going crazy and making those type of remarks.
85, Mr. We don't talk about race. Let's not talk about it. What do you think about all the things he said and about the biggest, what would you call that? Like karma of it
Man,
all, or?
yeah, I'm not even educated on that scenario, so I think that's way out of my league, to be honest with you.
Jenna,
All
how do
right,
you
Jenna.
feel hearing that as someone Jewish, someone being Jewish and being anti-Semitic?
I think number one, even if you don't know about this topic, you can 100% comment on the fact that everything that man said is completely repulsive and disgusting. If anyone says that about any type of group anywhere, they need to be looked at and spoken to in a certain way. Number two, he sounds exactly like Hitler. And actually, Hitler, it was said that his mother had an affair with one of the Rothschilds. So actually that in his lineage, because he's a bastard child of a Rothschild, that he was also Jewish. And how funny that he turned on the Jews as well. So yeah, I think this man either had some type of trauma or something. I don't know what his childhood was like. Did he know his mother was Jewish? Yes. And in the Jewish religion, if you came out of a Jewish body, you're Jewish. So even if your father is not and your mother is Jewish, you are Jewish. Yes, do you need to go through, of course, bat mitzvahs and do mikvahs and to actually be a part of Judaism is a bit different than just claiming that you're Jewish or to be Jewish, excuse me. I don't know who this man is. I did look him up today when I knew we were talking about this. And I just think it's disgusting. And also it's a testament to a lot of people feel this way. A lot of the things that I see on social media today are very anti-Semitic. People calling for the end of Israel, that's anti-Semitic. And I don't care how you look at it, one way or the other. No, I'm not talking about Judaism, but you are, because that is the Jewish homeland. So when you're calling for that, for the end of the state of Israel, that is anti-Semitic. You can't flip it or turn it any other way. And I'm completely shocked that anyone, again, even if you don't know about this topic, he just made the most radical claims and statements, I don't even want to repeat them, towards a certain group of people.
I don't agree with his statements at all. What I'm saying is I just don't want to elaborate on it.
Okay.
Yeah, same here. It's such a sensitive subject.
That's all.
Like, because I don't know about it, it's best to just stay out of it. But yeah, what he said.
But so this is my point I want to say. This is it, you guys. Nearly half of the country is anti-Semitic in some way. But I think, why don't you guys want to comment on it is my point where I'm getting at. I feel like people are so fearful to comment on it. And this is what I was saying. What is considered anti-Semitic at this point? Because I will comment on it. I think he hated himself. I think he was a hateful person. And I think he was disgusting. It's just like Black people that are passing for white. It was the same thing that happened in the 1800s when there was segregation. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's the same in the sense of...
I was just going to say that why can't we call out all bigotry? Whether you're anti-Semitic or you judge someone based on your skin color or your religion, you're a bigot and you're just an awful person. Why can't we all just say that? I don't know why. Now, I know you guys maybe don't want me to interject Donald Trump in this. I'm also Jewish. The week that Kanye West, was praising Adolf Hitler, and let me be clear, anybody that praises Adolf Hitler is just an awful human being. The week that Kanye West did that, what did Donald Trump do? He invited Kanye West and a guy by the name of Nick Fuentes, who is doesn't even believe the Holocaust happened, to dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Okay, this is one of many issues I have with some of our leaders. Okay, we need to call this stuff out. It doesn't matter whether you're racist, anti-Semitic, homophobic. We need to call out this stuff. Okay. As a whole, I will always speak out on it, whether it's against Black people or Jews, any minorities, any religion. I don't care if you're Islam or Jewish. We should all be able to call it out and say, this guy is an awful person. I don't care what happened to him in his childhood. I know a lot of people that have had very traumatic childhoods. They don't turn into anti-Semitics or racists, right? This is a bad guy who's probably a Klansman. But maybe this is the kind of guy that Donald Trump would invite to dinner. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Donald Trump claims he didn't know who Nick Fuentes was.
But he knew. Okay, let's just say you're right on that. Let's just say you're right on that. Let's assume he didn't know who Nick Fuentes was, which, by the way, I don't believe, because he's been asked about David Duke, and 20 years ago he knew exactly who David Duke was, but all of a sudden he ran for president. Oh, I don't know who that guy is, so I don't believe him. But for argument's sake, let's just say you're right. A week before, Kanye West was on the Alex Jones show, and he said Hitler was a great guy. A week later, Trump invites him to dinner. What would happen if Joe Biden did that? What would happen if Joe Biden invited a white guy who called black people the N-word, and then Joe Biden invited him to dinner? We would all be very upset at that, rightfully
And
so.
I want to say that I feel so blessed that I was born in. I feel so blessed that I was born in the 80s, because, like I told Jenna when we first met, I met Holocaust survivors, and I feel like my daughter's generation, they will not know this, and this is the sad thing about the stuff that's going around, because I truly believe in my heart the Holocaust happened. You can't tell me differently. And it's like some of this stuff is just so outrageous. Like, you mean to tell me like they had the numbers? Like, how would you fake? You know what I mean? Like, I met them. I saw them with my own eyes. So I get what you're saying, Brian. And I think that they're erasing history, and it's very sad. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But what is racism and what is anti-Semitism? It's ignorance. That's all it is. You're very ignorant. Either you're raised a certain way by racist or anti-Semitic parents, and you're ignorant. When you judge somebody based on skin color or religion, when you don't know anything about them, you're ignorant. That's what bigotry is, really.
Yes. And that's my one fear with actually a little bit of how free social media is, how you can really, especially spaces like X and Rumble, you really can say anything. You know, people put up these documentaries from Rumble, and they're very well put together, and they're amazing, have a lot of views, and it's easy to be like, oh yes, that's history. It's very difficult, right? I'm all for free speech, but you border on the line of changing the narrative with either someone has a huge following, or they make a really good piece of content that's like visually pleasing and entertaining, and then it gets a lot of views. That really, because I have not heard people speak so much on denying the Holocaust as I have in the past year. I really didn't see that growing up at all. Maybe because I was from a Jewish community, but I see it like all the time all over X. That is disgusting. And that's where I do fear a bit about how free and open social media has become. But also, I'm for free speech, so it's a difficult line to border, but it's a little alarming.
I just wanted to piggyback on what you said earlier, Brian, really quick. Trump did denounce white supremacy and David Duke on the first debate with him and Hillary Clinton when George Wallace asked that question.
And on a debate stage with Joe Biden, he told the Proud Boys, a known white supremacist group, to stand back and stand by. So I think he can say a lot of things, but I think actions speak louder than words. Donald Trump
stand by for what though? What did they stand back and stand by for?
So the Proud Boys, obviously, and the right-wing white supremacist fringe groups all support Donald Trump. Donald Trump was asked on a debate stage with Joe Biden, will you denounce the Proud Boys? The Southern Poverty Law Center has called them a white supremacist right-wing fringe group.
I remember all of this stuff you're stating, but I also remember how the media misled it and hyped it up as well.
Okay, well, I can't speak for the media. I can only speak for myself. And when Donald Trump says he doesn't want black people counting his money in casinos, he wants Jews counting his money. He said that in Playboy magazine and never denied it. That's all I need to know. He also has one of the whitest administrations. He hired one black guy, urban development. Okay. So, when you go to Mar-a-Lago, you don't see people like us, normal, everyday people.
So you believe Donald Trump is a racist?
Well, it's not that I believe it. It's his actions and his behavior. Look at all the discrimination.
He dated a black woman in the past.
Behaviors, but you're stating things that he said.
So
and you also know that he dated a black woman in the past.
So if you date a black woman, does that mean you can't be racist?
If you racist, you wouldn't date a black woman.
Really?
I'm keeping it real. Yeah.
I know.
If you're really racist, you wouldn't do it.
I respectfully.
Let me ask you this.
I disagree.
Do you think Dr. Umar would date a white girl?
I don't know who's Dr. Umar. I'm sorry, I don't know who that is.
Brian, you don't know who he is, Brian. We got to bring you back.
Jenna
We got to educate you.
Jenna just found out too on our last show.
Yeah,
so
I just found out.
And
I don't.
He would
I
not.
don't know who Dr. Umar is. Yeah, I'm sorry.
He's the blackest black person on planet Earth. Let's put it that
Okay.
way. He don't believe in anything mixture. He believes that if you date a white woman and you're black, the whole mindset is messed up. You know, that's how he thinks. It's
but hold on,
think like
we don't want to get too much off topic.
You're right. Let me back off.
I wanted to say, when y'all get done, I wanted to say something that may go to what Nora was saying earlier, as far as defining anti-Semitism and racism. And it's something that Brian said when you say judging people based off their color. So I'm going to speak from being black. I don't want to speak anything dealing with Jewish. So is it racist? I don't think it is. Normally, if I walk down the street and I see a black guy with a hoodie, dressed a certain way in a certain area, I'm going to feel a certain way until I get to know that person. The same way as if I seen a police officer with a police uniform, I'm going to assume that he's upholding the law, and that's what he does. There are certain stereotypes that are portrayed like in Hollywood and things like that with black people, that they have a certain car, you know, if it's Charger, Challenger, certain things like that. They got, you know, the look to them. Would you say that's racist to assume that they could be
so Vulgar? We all have biases inherently, right? We all have biases, no question. But I think what truly makes you a racist or an anti-Semite is if you treat somebody differently, right? We could all have inherent biases, but that doesn't mean that you're a blatant racist, right? Bias, I think, is different. Believing a stereotype, okay, that's one thing. But calling somebody names or treating somebody differently or making assumptions about somebody and the way you treat them, I think, are two completely different things. And what 85 Slim just said, somebody just made a comment, which I agree with, which was back in the slavery days, slave owners dated black women. So it is very possible to be a racist and still have relations with somebody who is black or Jewish or anything, right? We all have our biases. That's what I'm trying to say. That doesn't make you a horrible, bad person.
So what defines racism then? Because
what defines racism? Treating somebody differently because of their race without knowing anybody about them. You might see somebody on with a hoodie, but I'll be honest with you. If I see somebody dressed a certain way, if I see a white guy with a shaved head with tattoos all over his body, I might, at 3 o'clock in the morning in a bad neighborhood, I might be a little afraid. Same thing with a black guy, right? Doesn't mean I'm racist towards people with tattoos.
No,
doesn't mean I'm racist, right?
Yeah, I get that, but what I'm saying is, if it's a white guy, it's like, it's okay. But if it's a black person doing it and then a white person say something, a lot of people will come out like Benjamin Crump and say, oh, they were racist.
Well, Benjamin Crumb's an idiot. He's an idiot. I'm not going to. I call him Benjamin Crumbs because he's always taking the crumbs from the families after tragedies. I am not. I've had him on my show, and he's a. Can I swear here? I don't know. He's an idiot. Okay, he's despicable.
What was he like? Can you tell our audience
all that?
what he was like?
Yeah, I interviewed him. All that guy cares about is money. He is a con artist. He doesn't care about black people. He doesn't care about these young men that are dying. Right? He always wants to make his TV appearances and make money. He doesn't act.
You have to get on Tariq Nasheed and Dr. Umar on your show, please. I'm begging you.
Okay. Fair enough.
They're like taking over the black spaces. Your show would get like so many views. I'm not even kidding.
I'm going to tell you something. I did a black space like 2 weeks ago. It was brutal. It was a MAGA space. And the attacks that I got just for my skin color alone, they didn't like the fact that I'm anti-Donald Trump. And that's fine. But instead of having a civil discussion like what we're having, they insulted me for my skin color. They insulted me for my religion. I mean, it was pretty bad. So I might not be going into. I go into a lot of MAGA spaces, but that one was pretty brutal.
Well, you had MAGA guys criticizing you for your skin color, for real?
Yeah, they said my opinions weren't valid because I'm white. They questioned my heritage. They're just ignorant. They were just ignorant.
Sounds like
There are
what we
plenty
go
of.
through every
They were
week on here.
rhinos. They sound like rhinos.
Well, yeah, it was brutal. It was tough. And I mean, listen, I've had Larry Elder on my show. I've had Leo Terrell on my show. I want to get Candace
You like
Owens on.
Larry Elder?
Oh yeah,
I
I would
like
love
Larry Elder,
If
man.
you look up my YouTube page, we got into a screaming match for like 30 minutes.
Oh, I gotta
Yeah, I
go
want to
watch
see
it.
that.
Yeah, he
Oh,
wouldn't answer
Friday
my
we can get
questions.
Candace.
He wouldn't answer any of my questions. I mean, I asked him, because this is when he was running for president several years ago.
Oh, okay.
And I asked him, I said, if Donald Trump didn't say that the election was stolen before January 6th, and if he didn't say that the Democrats cheated, does January 6th happen? He wouldn't answer it. And then he started bringing up Hillary Clinton. So it's like, it's hard for me to respect somebody when they're not, even if I disagree with them, no problem. But answer the question. And like, it just this whataboutism he does is, yeah. But, I appreciated him coming on, but he just wouldn't answer a lot of my questions.
Yeah,
for sure.
See,
Nora,
I don't know if we going too long, but no, that was kind of my issue with not responding. I'm like, what? I think these terms need to be defined. It need to be some organization that set the standard of what's racism or what's anti-Semitic. That's why I don't get into it, because I'm not Jewish or Jew, so I don't get into
Yeah, but
it.
I'm not. Can I ask you though? I'm not black, as you can clearly see. I'm very white,
Yeah.
but my complexion, I look like a ghost. But that's another story. But like, if anybody white uses the N-word, I'm the first person to call it out. If anybody judges somebody because of their skin color, like, you know what I mean? Like I always, I don't listen. I listen to black people. I don't know what it's like to be pulled over because of the color of my skin. Here's the fundamental big difference between black people and Jewish people. When people look at me, they don't know I'm Jewish. They look at you, they know you're black, right? I don't know what that's like to be followed around in an electronics store and people think I'm going to shoplift because of the color of my skin. It's awful. So when I hear stories like this, I always try to do my best, to call it out. But, hatred is hatred, man. It doesn't matter where it's coming from, right? Hatred is hatred. And that's why, I try to call it out. And I try to listen to people that have different upbringings from me. I don't know what it's like to be judged because of the color of my skin. It's horrible. But I can still, we can still call it out.
Brian, because I know you're going to leave soon, I just want to play this one clip and then have you comment. And then we'll go into the final clips of the night, guys. So the biggest reason why we picked this topic is this week on X, Ian Carroll, who is a big conspiracy theorist, I guess that's the best way to say it. He and Elon Musk were going back and forth, and he felt like he ratioed him because he was explaining about why people have issues with Israel. So again, the views of these clips do not support the new party. We don't, agree, disagree with any of these clips. So I just want to get your opinion on one of them.